Here's a few essential tips that I wish I knew before I started tanking in FF14. Let's jump right in. Before you start pulling, always make sure to have your tank stance on, as this will increase our enmity on the mobs that they won't end up attacking the DPS or the healer. As you start approaching a pack of mobs, you can pop sprint just before you enter into combat. This will allow you to have the full duration of sprint, and if you use it during combat, the duration of sprint will be decreased by half. This will help us control the pace of the dungeon a lot better, as the healer or the DPS will not overtake you. You can pull the mobs from afar by using your range attack or provoke, and as you're approaching the pack of mobs, you can use an AoE cleave to ensure that you have all of their aggro. And if you don't, do not worry and do not stop halfway. This will make things awkward for your healer, as there are certain AoEs that they can place down to increase healing. Whilst you're moving to the next pack of mobs, you can use this time to check the aggro list and click on any of the mobs that do not have the red circle, and then use your range attack or provoke to regain the aggro. If the mobs are out of range, keep moving forward, don't worry about it. We can regain the aggro after we stop moving. Once you come to a halt, then start using your mitigations. In trials or raids, usually the first person who have the tank stance on signifies that they want to be the main tank. If we both have the tank stance on, usually I'll be the one to turn it off and just let the other tank handle the main aggro. When pulling a boss, use a range attack or provoke to drag him towards the center, and then spin him around and have him face north so that the boss is only looking at us, the tank, as it will be easy to deal with different types of mechanics, allowing melees to hit positional attacks, as well as pointing any frontal cleaves away from our team. This can also be applied to a pack of mobs you're pulling. However, you want to avoid having the mobs loosely spaced out. Do not stand in the middle of the pack of mobs, as a lot of jobs AoE cleaves cannot reach all the targets. You want to pull the mobs into one direction, pull them all closer, tighter together, so that the AoEs can hit all the mobs. How much should you pull? If in doubt, I always go wall to wall. We're not going to know our limits unless we test our limits. It is also absolutely okay to not go wall to wall and pull a few pack of mobs at a time to get comfortable with your job and the abilities and mitigations and whatnot. Or even just to give our healer an easier time, as they might be struggling. Especially in lower level dungeons where you can quite literally go from boss to boss. There is not even a wall stopping you from doing it. The only thing you should not do is only pulling one single pack of mobs, because even a DPS can handle this without too much of an issue, let alone a tank. Mitigations. When you are pulling a huge amount of mobs, or in any other situation where we think we might die, then do not be afraid to use your invulnerability, as it is the best mitigation tool we have, and it will give the healer plenty of time to heal us back up to full. On Paladin, it is the Hollowed Ground, Home Gang on Warrior, Living Dead on Dark Knight, Super Bolide on Gunbreaker. With the odd one out here being Living Dead, as we will need to make sure we reach 0 HP after we pop Living Dead, which will then allow every weapon skill we use to heal us back to full. Arm's Length is extremely useful and is often overlooked and misunderstood. People think it will slow down an enemy in terms of movement speed, but no, when it says slow, it means the enemy's attack speed. This is probably one of the stronger mitigation tools you have, and it only works on trash mobs and not on bosses. Reprisal reduces the nearby target's damage dealt by 10%, and it only has a cooldown of 60 seconds. I highly recommend just using this off cooldown on any pack of mobs, as you'll get it back up in no time. Potions, a form of mitigation that no one ever talks about. You can easily buy some cheap potions from the marketplace, and especially for lower levels, this can help significantly, as it can heal a large portion of your health, and it can come up clutch in certain moments, keeping you alive for a little bit longer. Stun, allowing you to interrupt the boss or the mob's cast, so that, for example, if they're casting an AoE, your teammates and yourself do not need to move out of the circle, losing damage in the process. Instead, you can just stun the mob or the boss to cancel it. Keep in mind that this only works on lower level bosses, but it will work for all level of mobs. Each tank job also has their own specific type of mitigations. They all function fairly similar. Make sure to space them out and not use more than 2 at once, as there is a diminishing return the more mitigation you use. And if worst comes to worst, you have no mitigations, there's not much heals coming in, the best you can do is kite the mobs and run around and run away from the mobs for that small bit of mitigation where the mobs have to travel to you to hit you. It is much better to have have a constant level of mitigation so that your healers are able to heal you up steadily instead of having a huge amount of mitigation and then suddenly dropping all that off, taking way more damage than your healer expected and then end up dying because of it. Another great time to use reprisal is when the boss is casting a spell that would damage the whole party, or other form of mechanics like party stack, a party spread, or even a tank buster. This way, you grant everybody in the party a 10% damage reduction. We can add party-wide mitigations on top of that to further mitigate any damage dealt to our party members. For example, on Paladin, we have Divine Veil and Passage of Arms, Shake It Off on Warrior, Dark Missionary on Dark Knight, and Heart of Light on Gunbreaker. Interject is another tank responsibility that you have whenever a mob or a boss has a flashy red cast bar going on. This is when you know you need to use your interject ability in order to cancel the spell, as if you let it go through, they will either do huge damage to you or have some sort of buff that increases their damage output or their defenses. Offensive cooldowns. This is one of the things newer players tend to forget about. Holding onto your cooldowns in a dungeon run doesn't really do anything. You should use it off cooldown as much as possible as long as you're able to get the full value of it, as it usually lasts for around 20 seconds. If the pack of mobs lasts for 20 seconds, then it is absolutely worth using your buffs or big damage cooldowns, as a tank's AoE damage is on par to that of a DPS, if not even more than a DPS. So by holding on to your cooldowns, you significantly slow down the progress of the dungeon. And do not forget, for 3 or more mobs, make sure to use your AoE weapon skill or spell. For 2 or less mobs, you can use your single target weapon skill or spells. And that's going to be it for this video. If you found the video helpful, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more future FF14 content. If you have any other tips or advice for new tank players, leave a comment down below. And check out this video where I talk about the 5 most played jobs in FF14.